All right, today's video is about intermittent fasting. Today I'm going to talk about intermittent fasting. I'm going to talk about what it is and what it can do for you. I am a personal advocate of intermittent fasting. I think it is an excellent way of dieting. I've done it 3 times for 3 huge cuts in my life, dropping weight that ranges between 20, 30, 40, and most frequently 50 pounds. And I can honestly say it is almost entirely due to intermittent fasting combined with light exercise. So let's get into exactly what it is and what it can do for you. Intermittent fasting is a really simple concept. All it is when you do not eat or you restrict what you eat for a certain period of time. And what that period is depends on the type of fasting you choose to do. It can either be a certain window in a day when you eat or don't eat, or it can be for a certain period of days in which you drastically reduce your calorie intake. How it works is when your body goes that long without eating, it exhausts your sugar storage in your body and then begins using fat as a source of energy. And this is a concept known as metabolic switching. Intermittent fasting is not an unproven concept. It's been shown to work again and again in many studies. One random study in a journal called Obesity showed that people who use intermittent fasting lost significantly more weight than those who used other dieting concepts. There are, however, conflicting studies about the effectiveness of intermittent fasting. However, a lot of these studies seem to argue amongst themselves over different types of intermittent fasting. For example, alternate day fasting doesn't seem to have better results than other types of calorie reduction diets. There are many types of intermittent fasting programs, and I'm going to discuss the most popular type here. One very popular type of intermittent fasting is called the 5-2 program. The 5-2 program involves eating a regular amount for 5 days of the week and drastically reducing your calorie intake on those other 2 days. The amount of calorie reduction on those other 2 days is down to 25% of a usual calorie day, while maintaining a regular diet on your other 5 days. On your fasting days, the calories you consume are also separated by a 12-hour window. So for women, they would eat 250 calories in the morning, and then 12 hours later in the evening, eat another 250 calories. That's all they would consume in that day. For a man, it would be about 300 calories in the morning, and then 12 hours later, 300 calories in the evening, giving him 600 calories total for that day for 2 days of the week. Next, we'll talk about time-restricted intermittent fasting. Time-restricted intermittent fasting can look a variety of ways. It can be anything from a 16 to 8, a 20 and 4, but for today's purposes, I'll talk about a 16 and 8 split. That is a popular split and one that I usually go around to. These diets restrict the amount of time you have in a day to consume calories, thereby eliminating pesky snacking habits that you may have in the evening because your window closes before that time. What exactly these time-restricted diets are, in the case of a 16 and 8, it means for 16 hours a day you do not eat. And then for 8 hours a day, you have a window where you can consume what you want within that window. Now, I say you can consume what you want, but there's still common sense that needs to be done within that 8-hour window. That 8-hour window isn't just an open source where you can consume cake and beer and all that. You still have to keep to a decent diet, but you keep it within that window. And what that'll do is it'll prevent snacking in the evenings and overeating during other periods in the day. So with a 16 and 8 program, what you would do is you would pick an 8-hour window in a day when you consume all your calories. Some people might incorporate breakfast and lunch and therefore having to cut out supper. Other people might incorporate lunch and supper and skip breakfast. Either way, you have to figure out a window that works for you and most likely your work schedule. It's different for everybody. However, I always recommend bringing your window as far away from the evening as possible. That way you avoid the evening snacking, which is most people's severe problem. So you cut out your breakfast, you have a very healthy lunch, you have a very healthy supper to consume the rest of your calories, and that's all you get to eat. You know you cannot eat after that period of time, and therefore there is no snacking. No unnecessary calories enter your body. Therefore, it leads to an excellent way to reduce your weight. There are many benefits to intermittent fasting. The first one is that you don't need to worry about a complicated diet. You don't need to worry about what you can consume exactly and worry about making it or where you can find it or how you can eat it at work if it's complicated. It's simple. You can still eat the foods you love, just in a restricted window. However, like I said before, you do have to be aware that you can't indulge during that period of time. You still have to stick to a moderately healthy diet, but you're not restricted specifically to what you're able to eat. Therefore, it opens up a lot of freedom and it's not complicated. You just need to stick to your window. Another somewhat benefit of this type of diet is you'll learn to savor your food. You'll have large windows of time where you're not eating. Your next meal isn't immediately following this meal. Therefore, you learn to savor the food. The food will taste better and you'll enjoy it more. You'll appreciate what you do eat more because there's less of it. Another benefit, which ties into what I've already been saying, is this type of diet will help you avoid sugary and fatty foods. Not directly, but because it cuts out the nighttime snacking, you'll normally reach for a salty, sugary food in the evening. You usually at snack time are looking for something convenient and easy, and that's almost always unhealthy food. It's indirectly going to cut out that window and cut out those sugars and those fats that you'd often be eating in the evening. There is some evidence to suggest that it can also help if you're pre-diabetic. It can help with your blood sugars. The way it does this is every time you eat sugar, your body releases insulin. The insulin moves the sugar from your blood to your cells in order to generate energy. People who are pre-diabetic naturally have a resistance to that insulin, meaning their body doesn't respond as well to that insulin. Going longer times without eating means your body is pumping out less insulin. There are also some studies that suggest that intermittent fasting may help prevent cancer and help prevent heart disease. However, I'm not going to get into those studies and I'm not going to confirm whether or not that's true, as those studies are incredibly in-depth and would take up most of this video. But there is some evidence to suggest that those are possibilities. Intermittent fasting, however, is not perfect. There are some potential side effects, though not deadly, that you should be aware of. Some side effects of intermittent fasting might include irritation and tiredness. When you skip a meal, your blood sugar drops. Therefore, it can affect your mood. You may notice headaches. You may notice more irritability. Some people have reported less of a desire to work out or the desire not to be as social. You can help with that energy level problem by eating more high fiber and high protein foods. You should also incorporate healthy fats into your diet, such as nuts, which will make you feel satiated for longer. Other potential side effects include possible lightheadedness or dizziness, and this is once again caused by the drop in your blood sugar. However, the best way to avoid this is the exact same way to avoid the other symptoms, which is having a high protein, high fiber diet, which also includes healthy fats. That'll help prevent your blood sugars from dropping drastically. They'll slowly drop, therefore reducing the likeliness of symptoms. Now that we got the technical medical stuff out of the way, I want to talk about my personal experience with intermittent fasting. Every time I have cut, I have used an intermittent fasting. And I have done it because I know where my problem areas lie, and that's in evening snacking. I consume far too many calories in the evening to be successful in a diet. I found that intermittent fasting closed that window so that I wouldn't snack in the evenings. It also forced me to skip breakfast. That's due to my work schedule and the fact that I had to put my 8-hour window in a spot in my day that made the most sense, which incorporated lunch and supper, forcing me to skip breakfast, which is definitely an important meal if you're trying to build muscle. However, when it comes to cutting, it's much more important to have a window that reduces that snacking. That is what I focused on, and I've been highly successful. My first few times doing intermittent fasting, combined with increased exercise, of course, I dropped between 20 and 40 pounds. This, my latest time, my COVID stomach, I ended up dropping 50 pounds by doing intermittent fasting along with walking. Just those two simple lifestyle changes allowed me to drop the weight that I currently dropped. I am a huge advocate of intermittent fasting and what it can do for you. I think it's the easiest diet that you can follow, though not necessarily a diet itself, because it doesn't tell you what you can and can't eat. You still need to follow some other type of guide in order to make sure you're getting the nutrients and nutritious food you need. But combined with that, intermittent fasting can completely change the way you consume calories, which is always the hardest part of any dieting program. If you're somebody who's just starting out, or somebody who's experienced and wants to try something new, I think intermittent fasting can certainly work for you. You need to find the window that works for you. It doesn't have to be an 8-hour window. You can have a 6-hour window where you eat. You have to make sure it works in your lifestyle. That is the most important thing. You cannot shove something into a lifestyle that won't allow for it. Consistency is key to hit your goals. Use intermittent fasting. If you're just starting out, incorporate some light exercise, and I guarantee you'll watch the weight melt away. So if you're just starting on your fitness journey and you don't know where to begin, I highly recommend you start right here. Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Brand new, trying to build a community. I hope you'll join me, and check out my next video where I show you how to supersize your walk to burn up to 3 times as many calories. How can you do it? It's a piece of cake, and I'm going to show you in my next video. Thanks for joining, guys.